Good evening, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live. We got a lot of things going on right now. Situation getting worse in Ukraine. The nuclear facility, the containment facility there has been breached. And Russia is blaming that the U.S. has a footprint in there, according to the particular website here, tsargrad.tv. It says American footprint in the shelling of nuclear power plants. And also we're going to be looking at RT saying that UK has moved its warplanes to civilian airports. This hasn't happened since World War II. It gives them the ability to be able to be better prepared in the event their country is attacked. We also have Russia using Belarusian airspace to launch missiles into Ukraine. Seems like Russia's learning from the Israelis. Israelis are very notorious for using Lebanese airspace to launch attacks on Syria. We got those stories and more for you here, including the Pope of Rome instructing Vatican entities to move all their funds to the Vatican Bank by September 30th. What is going on that the Vatican would be calling all of their assets back into their bank? Well, oddly enough, Ethan, a friend of ours we actually know him personally. He is an economist, has sent warnings to us that financial collapse appears to already be in the beginning now and could possibly completely fall this year. I don't know the answers to those things. I'm just sharing those things with you. I have no idea, but it is strange that the Vatican is moving their funds back to their own bank there. According to this, American footprint in the shelling of the nuclear power plant states here that the Ukrainian strike pierced the roof of the special building of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Don't know if we're pronouncing the name of that correctly, which stores nuclear fuel. If you remember, I told you the U.S. nuclear rods that have not been used are stored in that particular container. And I've also said to you that if that is ever breached, it would be a disaster far beyond Chernobyl. Well, oddly enough, let me see if I can find it. Here we go, right here. This article here on the First Russian, Tsargrad, their particular website here. Head of Zaporizhzhia, Belitsky, the accident at a nuclear power plant is comparable to Chernobyl and Fukushima. So the military of the civilian administration of Zaporizhzhia region, Yevgeny Belitsky, assessed the consequences of the accident of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as a result of the shelling of the armed forces of Ukraine. Shelling by the Ukro-Nazis and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant can lead to a catastrophe which is comparable in scale to the accidents of Chernobyl and Fukushima. This was stated by the head of the Civil Military Administration of Zaporizhzhia region, Yevgeny Belitsky. He said, in the event the radiation emissions, the consequences will be catastrophic not only for Zaporizhzhia region. The Chernobyl accident affected dozens of countries, and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is the largest in Europe, yet everyone should be aware of this, Belitsky said in the interview given to RIA Novosti. So this is a very serious situation, friends. I mean, very, very serious. And as I told you before, from inside information that I had gotten on this, the Ukrainians do not care. They're willing to create a no man's land so that Russia could never invade Europe, and at the same time hoping to kill off as many Russians and Ukrainians that are Russian, ethnic Russian, as they possibly can. So this is the interview right here that they were speaking about here. Well, I just wanted to see if I could find an actual statement in there. He warned the head of the region that Chernobyl, the accident, was affected dozens of countries, right? Belitsky emphasized not only the Crimea Canal, but also the Black Sea could suffer from the release of radiation. Thus, it will affect many countries, he concluded. It is located left of the bank of the Dnieper next to the Energodar. This is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe in terms of number of units and installed capacity. Since March, it has been under the protection of the Russian military. The Ukrainian army continues to regularly shell the city and the territory of the station adjacent to it. Experts expected to visit the facility in the near future. As French President Emmanuel Macron stated, Russia and Ukraine provided security guarantees for the mission to be sent. Now, by the way, because they're sending these experts, nuclear experts to Ukraine, one of the articles here believes that Zelensky is determined to destroy it before they get there. Trying to think of where I actually have that article at on that. Let me just see here. Let's see. I was thinking somewhere I had that on there, and maybe it is actually in this article here that the Ukrainians need that destruction of the power plant. Okay, maybe it was here. Let me just read this here. Ukrainians do not trust the president's office for a long time, and the United States is not ready to help nonstop before the IAEA delegation arrives, and ZNPP Kiev needs an explosion at all costs, both literally and figuratively. There it is right there. And they are trying to organize this explosion right now. Energodar authorities reported that armed forces of Ukraine are firing artillery closer to the power units of the Zaporizhzhia MPP. A shell hit the roof of the special building was recorded. Moreover, it is this building that fresh fuel for reactor is stored. Vladimir Rogov, a representative of the administration of the Zaporizhzhia region, confirmed. Let's see. Ukraine does not comment on its own strikes, diligently preserving the picture of Russian aggression, but this game will be over soon. You can't hide what's going on. Air defense systems cover Zaporizhzhia MPP. However, this work is not a guarantee of complete protection because a drone can also be launched and has already happened. These are just statements. Let's see. Photos prove that the roof of the waste storage facility has been broken, and this is no longer a joke. Meanwhile, potassium iodide tablets are being distributed in polio clinics in Moldova, said Boris Gilka, head of the Chisna General Health Department. Potassium iodide is part of the defense against the radioactive threat. The military civilian administration of Zaporizhzhia reported that so far the situation is under control and the background radiation is normal. I must say that everything is typical of the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Thus, the ministry has already stated the AIEA does not conclude the Russians are violating nuclear protocols. Russia will put the world at risk at a nuclear catastrophe. That is, Kiev does not need the truth. The regime requires correct conclusions. Really what it comes down to is that Ukraine is trying to bust this thing wide open, and of course they'd like to blame it on Russia at the same time. So that's where we're headed on all that right there. Moving on in other news, though, let me jump over here. The UK is to move warplanes to civilian airports, according to the Daily Express there. Britain is preparing a station of combat aircraft in civilian airports for the first time since World War II in response to the Ukrainian conflict. The Daily Express reported on Sunday, citing people familiar with the matter, the dispersing of the planes across the country will help the Royal Air Force rapid response units survive attacks on their bases. The newspaper said the IGAL combat employment scheme was initially intended for potential hotspots overseas, such as the Indo-Pacific and the Middle East and Eastern Europe. According to the report, a trial next month will have Eurofighter Typhoon and F-35 jet fighters based in Norfolk. So there you have it. The Brits are moving their stuff around. They're expecting this war to get bigger. We know that according to this article here, you can inform that Russia also is launching strikes in Ukraine, actually Western Ukraine, from Belarus airspace there. Both these right here can show you the pinpoints where they were saying that that this was happening at. So if you kind of zoom into the area right there, of course you're west of Kiev. You got Kiev right here, far west of Kiev, and they were shooting southwest. So were they headed for Ravine? Were they headed for Lutsk as far as their targets, or just inside the country there? We don't know. Maybe a supply line coming in from Poland. Just not really sure exactly what the target was, but it seems that Russia is beginning to do same tactics that Israel does. Israel uses Lebanon airspace to strike Syria. Now Russia's using Belarus airspace to strike inside of Ukraine, deep into Ukraine there, to where they are not shot down because they're protected over Belarus's airspace there. Zelensky has a reason to fear a tribunal. This also coming out there. They're saying he and the Kiev regime have reasons to be afraid. He and his inner circle ordered to bomb, shoot, and kill peaceful citizens, the elderly, women, children. That is why Zelensky is doing everything to prevent the tribunal. And that is definitely, it's interesting they're bringing this out, because this is exactly the type stuff that Patrick Lancaster has been reporting on the ground in eastern Ukraine. The civilians are constantly accusing the Ukrainian military of genocide of their own people there inside of Ukraine. And now this is becoming more and more known that the DPR captured hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers during the battle for the city of Mariupol, including members of the notorious Azov battalion, which has its ranks fighters openly displaying neo-Nazi views and sympathies. Some of them have been accused of committing serious crimes during the intensive fighting against the DPR militias and Russian troops. Volodin called for the trial to be held publicly so the world community will know about the crimes against humanity committed by the Kiev regime. Boy, that'd be sure nice to see that finally come out. I'll try to include this link for you as well. This Russian paratrooper actually speaks about that in a video that's on here. He goes into the details about what was done by what he witnessed himself by the Ukrainians inside of Ukraine when they came in there on the ground, the atrocities that were being done to the Ukrainian people there. In other breaking news as well, Pope Francis instructs the Vatican entities to move all funds to the Vatican Bank by September 30th. Can't help but wonder why that's going on. I do know that from one economist, Ethan, a friend of ours, that had said to me in a tweet recently, or a text rather, that he said, Steve, he says the elements of a collapse has begun. Now, whether or not that will actually come to fruition or not, I don't know the answer to that. But for the Vatican to move its funds back to the Vatican Bank is quite suspicious. So I want to bring that to your attention as well. Mount St. Helens magma chamber is recharging. More than 88 earthquakes rattled the dangerous volcano in the last 30 days instead of 17 quakes. Normally is what the average would be for that. So if you remember Mount St. Helens, when it exploded the last time around, boy, it set up dust and plume and everything that just covered the entire region. So again, that area now becoming more active, and that's only part of what I was told that would be happening over the next few years. We'd see more earthquakes, storms, things of that nature there. Things would only get worse and worse. Speaking of that, hurricane tracker, let me just see where we are on that issue there. I know there were a couple of storms sitting out there in the Atlantic region, kind of headed towards this direction. So they still seem to be a little ways off, still not developed as of yet. So we don't really know what they're going to do. Wave off of Africa, still headed kind of towards the Gulf. The other one here looks like it may go up into the Gulf of Mexico as well. So we'll have to kind of keep a watch on those storms to see what's going to happen. I know there's a lot of talk of hypercanes. So, you know, I have to wait and see. There's a lot of storms that have been happening already, but we don't really know for sure what's going to take place after that. 4 days after a man sets fire to home, shoots resident as they escape. That was a very interesting story. According to American military news there was a man with a shotgun arm set fire to these little residences right here. And as the people began to flee out of their residence there, he opened fire with a shotgun. Well, the police arrived on the scene there, and engaged the shooter and killed the shooter as a result of that. So anyway, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Thank you for listening.